For our scripture this morning, I will be reading first of all Luke 10:38 to 42. I will also be reading Matthew 11:28 to 30. First from Luke 10:38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." And now for Matthew 11:28 to 30. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Well, I apologize now for any coughing that I might have this morning. Our message title this morning is Refresh and Renew, Just Breathe. It sounds like a good title for a yoga retreat. I was a little worried when I came in this morning that people might be carrying mats. However, there won't be any warrior poses or downward dog this morning. But really, I like this idea of just breathing. And I want to use that idea of just breathing as a framework for how to talk about resting and how we can become renewed, both physically and spiritually. Why do we need to rest, though? Busyness. I feel like this is something I hear about frequently. Whether it's talking to someone, it seems like it comes up in almost every conversation. How was your week? Well, it was a really busy week, but I'm doing okay. So this idea of busyness is just all around us. I think it's pretty much everywhere. It's a very commonly discussed issue. Busyness and our need to take a rest. And I hear it stated frequently that we are so much more busy today than we've ever been before. But I'm not sure if I believe that. It kind of envisions people 2,000 years ago, or even less than that they mostly just sat around and twiddled their thumbs. And I don't think that that's very realistic. In fact, when I tried to find some research on this, are we more busy now than we've been in the past? At least in relation to how much we work, the trend has been steadily going down. And this was globally, this research. Actually, it was kind of interesting. All the graphs kind of predicted most of the major leading countries on a slant about this. From 100 years ago, they worked this much, and now it's really declined the number of hours. And the U.S. was kind of like this. So we work a lot more in the U.S., apparently, than globally people do. However, I don't think work is a good reflection of busyness, because it's really easy to find things to do to get busy. And the reality is we're a people designed to be doing things. We like doing things, and that's good. And however, I think it's quite ironic, don't you think, that we're called human beings when we spend very little time just being. We should have maybe been called human doings. Although perhaps it's helpful to be called human beings, because it can remind us that sometimes we do need to rest, to just be, to renew our bodies and to renew our souls. So this idea of being busy is nothing new. We hear about it all the time. So this morning, I'm not going to name any of the ways that we get busy, maybe over busy. I'm not going to try to label some busyness as good and others as not. I'm going to speak of it more generally. And we're all very different. So what might be too busy for one person might not be busy enough for another. But I'm guessing that most, if not all of us, would say that we recognize a need to take a rest among our busyness. But what does that look like? And is it even biblical? Does God really want us to take a rest? I mean, doesn't the Bible talk a lot about being hardworking and diligent? If we look at Galatians 6, it says, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." Right? So don't become weary and don't give up. Colossians 3, "Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men." So again, we hear that we need to work heartily. And Proverbs 6, this really takes it far. "A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." So you can't even sleep or slumber or fold your hands. Clearly, we could make a good case for how we all need to be diligent workers. So why give these verses and point them out in a sermon that's talking about rest? Because there's a balance. It's finding harmony between the two. There was a quote in Barclay's Daily Study Bible that put it this way: "The rhythm of the Christian life is the alternate between meeting with God in the secret place and serving men in the workplace. We have a need of both, work and rest, and a need to strive to develop a harmony between the two. And this will likely look different for each person." And yes, the answer to the original question, it is important, and God does care about how we rest, and our scriptures actually talk about it quite a bit. In the beginning, Genesis 2, "On the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work. And if God of the universe sees fit and necessary to rest, then how much more do we also need to take that rest?" And then in Exodus 20, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do your work, but on the seventh it is a Sabbath to the Lord your God, and on it you shall not do any work." Rest is so important to God that he put it right into his commands. In Mark 6, it was important to Jesus. I love this example in Mark 6. Jesus had sent the apostles out to go and preach and spread the good news, and they come back and they start talking to him. And then it says, the apostles gathered around Jesus, and they reported to him all that they had done and taught. But because so many people were coming and going, they didn't even have a chance to eat. Jesus said to them, he said, "Come away with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. So it was important to Jesus, so important that he wanted to model it. He was constantly going up to high places to pray or quiet places. And he even wanted to encourage his disciples to come away and spend some time in rest. All right, so I want to come back to this theme today: refresh and renew, just breathe. This, I was invited to speak later today at Camp Menisca's mental health retreat, and that's where this theme of rest and renew, refresh and renew came from. And when I had heard that, it sparked in my head a song that I thought of called "Breathe." And then I thought, wow, that would be a good way to kind of, as a framework, to talk about this. So before I knew I was going to get sick, I had decided that I would sing that song for you this morning. So I apologize, because this might be a little rough. But